Welcome back guys to Voicey here and another r/EntitledParents. Don't forget Voicey veterans to like, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called EM Tries to Dominate Conversation at Funeral, Gets Shut Down by Innocent Old Lady. Some of you may have read my recent post about my entitled grandpa, who was emotionally abusive to my lovely dad, who is and will always be absolutely amazing. For those of you that didn't read, my father's paternal family is full of entitled people who are proud of things they shouldn't really be proud of. This story has nothing to do with Grandpa though, but rather my uncle, aunt and cousin, who I'll call Louise, fake name. They're Dad's brother along with his wife and daughter. Dad's brother inherited all of Grandpa's dishonest nature. My aunt and uncle are the entitled parents in this story. Last year, Dad's maternal uncle died. I'll call him Uncle Norman, fake name. He was always Dad's and my favorite uncle. Uncle Norman was always really caring, really gentle, and had a great sense of humor, and was always brilliant around kids. We traveled the 5 hours it takes to go to where the funeral was being held, only to see that aunt and uncle were there, but no Louise. Their excuse for Louise not being there was that she had been to too many funerals this year, and that she'd been to 5, which are far too many for a young girl, who was 16 at the time. We later found out that no, she had not been to 5 funerals. She had been to 2. The 3 others were distant family members who had died, such as Louise's grandfather's sister's husband, whose funeral she hadn't been to. One of the funerals they included as one she'd been to was Uncle Norman's, while we were at the funeral, and she wasn't there. It's worth noting exactly how entitled they act around Louise constantly. Louise was born after my brother and me. My aunt had been told that she couldn't have children, so Louise was a bit of a miracle baby. With this in mind, their entitled nature towards her is somewhat understandable, but by no means excusable. They turned Louise into a bit of a spoiled brat. She was given everything she was asked for, and as a child used to constantly attention seek when the conversation wasn't about her or focused on her. One time at a family gathering, she started dancing behind my dad to get his attention. He leaned forward and farted at her, which made her scream and run away. Dad nodded at me with a grin and said, "That sorted her out." Still makes me chuckle when I think about it. Moreover, my aunt and uncle would encourage this entitled behavior. They spoke about very minor achievements as if she was a child prodigy. They would drive for hours to take her to places she wanted to go, only to turn back around and drive home if she changed her mind. She was always really spoiled, really entitled, and it was completely their fault. Back during Christmas 2013, I was living in China for my studies. When the family did the big pre-Christmas meetup, they spent the whole time talking about Louise, and didn't ask my dad and brother at all how I was doing, even though I was on the other side of the world. Louise also goes through phases of being interested in various things, which would then become the entire topic of family conversation. When she was into dancing and ballet, we had to watch her dance and talk about all the different dancing she could do. When she was doing gymnastics, we had to hear about that and nothing else. When she joined Scouts, yup, same thing. Irrelevant, but due to her entitled spoiled nature, it's almost impossible for her to make friends. So when she joined Scouts, both her parents joined as Scoutmasters to make sure she got the best treatment, and that she wasn't bullied by other kids for being a snob. To be completely honest, her parents ruined her. She was homeschooled because she was bullied and didn't like school. Neither of her parents know how to teach, so she has no education. Now let's rewind back to Uncle Norman's funeral. I did my best to catch up with family members I hadn't spoken to in years, sharing nice memories of Norman, complimenting the music chosen and talking about how we had the same taste in classical music. The usual sort of thing you would talk about at a funeral. My aunt and uncle, however, would only talk about Louise, the kid that couldn't be bothered to come up. Louise had been learning how to shoot a gun at cadets, because when you have an entitled, emotionally unstable teenager, teaching them how to shoot a gun is a great idea. My aunt, the whole time, excitedly spoke about how her daughter looked like a little sniper, talking about the clothes she had to wear, how much they had to spend on her outfit. Although we later found out this was free, that was just the value of the outfit. We generally just gave nodding responses before trying to turn the conversation back to Norman, back to the ceremony, back to catching up with family members, only for my aunt to interject with more bollocks about Louise, Also worth noting, my aunt was only related to Norman through marrying my uncle. So why she tried to just dominate the funeral, I have no idea. I was getting increasingly frustrated, as I often am, by their selfishness, until this absolute gift of a little old lady spoke up. She was a friend of Uncle Norman's and was sitting next to my aunt. I hadn't met her before, so we hadn't spoken much other than the standard small talk, asking how we knew Norman, etc. Midway through, Aunt rambling on about Louise in the usual exaggerated, entitled way that she usually did, Norman's friend cleared his throat and spoke clearly.
I'm sorry to stop you, but who is Louise?
My aunt scoffed, choking on air as if this precious old lady had just told her that she couldn't find the toilet, so she crapped in her teapot instead.
Louise is our daughter. Oh.
This little old lady then shook her head before turning around and talking to other friends of Norman's. I couldn't help but laugh. It was amazing to see my aunt absolutely shut down just from one little old lady asking an innocent question. She then shut up, frowning with an absolute foul look on her face before deciding to randomly complain about the food. It didn't take long for her to start rambling about Louise again, but it was great to see that look on her face. I also found out afterwards they spent 10 hours of the day driving, 5 hours going to the funeral, then 5 hours back so they could cook dinner for Louise. We got an overnight hotel, went home the next day. Look, it's pretty natural for parents to talk about their kids. It consumes a lot of their time, right? But if your kid is 16 years old, that means you've had this kid for 16 years. And they're still the main point of your conversation? Surely that's telling of an unhealthy relationship there. If your whole identity is wrapped around the success of your one child, that's a really unstable identity. And it's gonna cause a lot of problem when that kid grows up and leaves to start their own life. Because if the 18 or so years of your life was all about just them and talking about them, and you don't have any hobbies or any interests of your own apart from your kid, then who are you? What are you going to do once they leave and start their own life? Unfortunately, I think these are the type of people that become busybodies and try to run everybody else's life after their kid leaves. This story was called Entitled Mother of the Groom Made Demands for Her Son's Wedding. The context: the bride's mother died when she was 12, so the bride's sister stepped in as the mother of bride and helped pay for the wedding. First, the dress shopping. The bride decided to invite entitled mother of the groom along because she was trying to build a better relationship with her. All the bridesmaids and a few more family members came. We were a loud bunch, and Emog, entitled mother of groom, sat in the corner angrily. We kept trying to include her by saying, "Hey Emog, do you like this one? What do you think?" But she still sat there sulking. Later we found out that she'd been snapping pictures of the bride's dress and sending them to the groom's whole family. Well, this was just the start. Throughout the wedding planning, Emog would send the bride ideas and get significant other upset when the bride didn't use her ideas. The wedding was pale pink, pale glittery gold and white. The mother-in-law would send things like Batman-themed wedding cakes. She even bought invitations for the wedding without asking. At some point, Emog had enough. She confronted the bride and it went like this.
It's like you don't want me to help in the wedding. It's my son's wedding too.
Not trying to make you feel that way at all. I just have a specific vision.
Well, we should be the ones paying for it. I'm pretty much going to have to be the mother of the groom and the mother of the bride since you don't have a mom.
Well, actually, I've asked my sister to stand in as mother of the bride, since she's taken care of me since my mum died and she put me through school.
This is insane! She's not your mother, she's not even your actual sister.
The bride was adopted when she was 3 days old.
I'm actually the mother of the groom, so it makes sense that I stand in. Let us plan the wedding or we aren't coming.
Surprise, surprise, she said no. They still came. Later there was another incident. The groom is a fireman, so all of his groomsmen were firefighters. He spends 24-hour shifts with these guys. They're like brothers. However, the groom also had 2 brothers, plus 2 very young siblings, but this wasn't about them. He's not close with either of them. One was off at school and the other was just like Emog. So the groom was hesitant to have them in the wedding. He asked though, and both said they didn't want to participate. Well, that didn't sit well with Emog. She called the groom.
Include your brothers in your wedding. This is ridiculous. You're being very rude.
Mum, they don't even want to be in the wedding, and we already have a whole party picked out.
Well, tell someone that you changed your mind.
I can't do that, but my brothers can be ushers if they want.
This is ridiculous. One of the brothers is your twin. How do you think he'll feel when you're standing up there, getting all of the attention, and he's sitting in the crowd? That's not fair to him.
It's my wedding. When he gets married, I don't care if I'm in the party or not. It'll be his day, and this one is mine.
If they're not in the wedding, we aren't coming.
And they still freaking came. Later, the emog found out that they'd requested no kids at the wedding. I know people have mixed feelings about this, but the bride and groom have no kids, and they just wanted everyone to have a night of fun and drinking without worry. However, the groom has a 5-year-old brother and 3-year-old sister. Emog called the bride.
Why aren't you having kids at the wedding?
We just want people to have a good time.
Well, this is appalling. This is his brother and sister. Now they won't be in any of the wedding pictures. How do you think you'll make them feel?
Well, I'm sorry, but if I make an exception for you, I have to do it for others too.
You're just not inviting them because they're adopted.
Yes, the bride herself is also adopted, so that logic is severely flawed. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings.
Well, if they can't come, then we aren't coming.
The bride agreed to let the kids come to the ceremony, but they'd have to go home before the reception. And the emog still came to the reception, sans kids, despite threats not to. Come time to the wedding reception, they had it in a big grand ballroom. There were around 15 tables and no assigned seating. Everyone could sit where they wanted. Well, we realized that Emog and her immediate family all sat in a poorly lit corner away from everyone. Oh well, guess they're keeping to themselves. We were wrong. Later, Emog's brother approaches the father of the bride. Mind you, the bride's dad is a 75-year-old kind-hearted preacher that would never so much as think a cuss word. The exchange went like this. "How are you, sir?" Emog's bro.
Not good. Bride's a real B. You know, I'm sitting here with the parents of the groom, and they've seated us in the corner. If that B of a bride doesn't want us here, she shouldn't have said so. Not exiled us to the freaking corner of the room where we can't enjoy ourselves. The bride is terrible for the groom. I hope he comes to his senses instead of continuing a marriage with a woman who would be so blatantly disrespectful of his mother.
The brother storms off and father of bride was speechless. Later, the bride's brother-in-law approached the father of the groom to see what was going on and try to sort things out. The father of the groom, more level-headed, said he thinks Emog was just upset that we had been so mean to her at dress shopping, that we'd really pushed her out of the group and ignored her, after all of us tried to include her. We all tried to figure out why she was so crazy ever since the engagement. Turns out, she has some weird complex where she wants to be in control of her son. She doesn't want him moving on. He has a twin brother who she's managed to keep under her wing, telling him he's mentally challenged, keeping him in special classes through school, even though the school kept advising her that he was too advanced for them. They spent the groom's whole life telling him how ugly he is, and how his twin is the good-looking twin, and basically told him he shouldn't even try to date because no one would want him. Luckily, the groom made it out of their house, and now lives an extremely successful life with his wife. Hopefully the Emog doesn't cause more strife. A wedding is stressful enough trying to plan it, even when you've got support and help of all those family and friends around you. Can you imagine having this crazy mother that their whole life has tried to manipulate them, like tells them they're ugly and stuff like that so that they don't move on and find a partner? Like, that's so messed up. And keeping the twin brother in special classes just so that he thinks he's dumb? That's psychopathic horror level stuff that you just want to stay as far away from that as possible. Post your stories, memes, and fan art at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.